Hey everyone! Today I'm going to do a review on the Resinsoul Pixiu. For this review, I'm going to split it into two parts. Part 1 will be the usual overview of the doll and my personal opinion of it, and Part 2 will include a comparison between how the doll works default from Resinsoul and how it handles when you suede and restring it with thicker elastic. It will also include some information on some clothes that can possibly fit the doll. The Pixiu is generally 28 centimeters tall, wears a 5'6" sized wig, and can wear 10mm, 12mm, and 14mm eyes, though there can be some minor gapping when you use 10mm eyes. My doll here is in Resinsoul's coffee skin and purple skin, and currently has 10mm eyes installed in him. The Pixiu has a head cap system, which works just like every other Resinsoul doll, and it just has the little latch in the front that goes into this hole here. And then it has two magnets. Then on the inside, there's an S-hook, which you just pull up and twist to take the head off, and then the eyes are kept in with eye putty. For head movement, the Pixiu can look down about that much. He can kind of look up. It doesn't really keep his poses very well, but then he can tilt his head to the side like so. If you haven't noticed, his head does not hold poses very well, so it's kind of practically a requirement to suede his head, or else, you know, it'll just bobble all over the place. And next we go on to the arm, which has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. For the shoulder here, it does not hold poses very well without sueding. All it can really hold is, it can just go out about that much and keep the pose. But otherwise, anything in between that, it just doesn't hold the pose. Then you have this little floating piece here, which is Resinsoul's double joint, which, as I play more and more with dolls that have this joint from Resinsoul, I really don't like it very much. While it looks a bit more natural than the boxy joints you find in other dolls with double joints, it's really kicky. It doesn't take much for it to do that. The wrist and the hand is all one piece here, and the hand can go down about so and up and kind of go off to the side. Their hands on the Pixiu are very interesting and pretty detailed for such a small size. So that's this one. They're quite interesting looking. And then here's this other hand. So I think they're really cool. Next is the torso, which just has 2 pieces. So for the upper torso, if we take it apart and we look inside, you can see 2 magnets in there, which it looks like they're hot glued in. And yeah, those are the magnets that pair up with his wings, which just pop on like so, no problem. For posing, he can slouch forward and kind of slouch back, and he can go off to the side like so. Then for the lower torso, there's 2 things I can mention here. The first being that the Pixiu does not have a molded, female parts or male parts. So depending on what you want out of the doll, it can be either a boy or a girl. And then if you turn the doll around, you'll see that there's this giant magnet in his butt, which is just for style. And it just pops on like so. And now to the legs, which have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. For sitting, I found that my Pixiu is actually one of my better sitters from Resinsoul, default from the company. Though he does still have his own issues, but he sits pretty well without support. And you can slouch him forward so it looks a bit better, and he doesn't look like he's leaning back so much. But I think the reason that he leans back so much is because he's got this like crazy back of thigh thing going on here, and yeah, I'd imagine if you maybe even that out a little bit, he might not lean back as much, but you might still have to do some slight modding in the hips here. Then as we go down the leg here, he can bend his knee there, and then this piece can bend forward so he can kind of stand in a crouching type position. And then go down to his foot, which doesn't have all that great of a range of motion. Goes up a bit like that and down. Goes to the side a little bit like that. But yeah. And now for my personal opinion of this doll. As far as looks go, I like this doll. Pixiu is a very cute sculpt and I totally love his legs and hands. I do admit though that it was the fact that the doll was a dragon that I got it in the first place. If it was some other fantasy creature, I probably would have passed on it, since I've never been too interested in owning many, if any, fantasy dolls. Other than that, I find this doll to be infuriating to handle and pose when it still has the original elastic from Resinsoul in it, and hasn't been sueded, even more so when it has its tail and wings on, which greatly limit its movement. Speaking of the extra parts, the tail is not jointed and molded in a way that it makes it so he cannot sit with it on, and can even make standing difficult. I've seen some people put the tail on upside down or twist it to the side to allow him to sit, but that honestly looks really silly to me. As for the wings, I probably would have preferred if Resinsoul used circular magnets to attach them so that they could be repositioned easily. With how the magnets are shaped and positioned at the moment, the ends of his wings really get in the way of his legs. Also, the base of his wings are a bit too wide for his back. So all in all, while I love my twins very much, it would have been nice if Resinsoul put more thought into the extra attachable pieces. I'm not quite as frustrated with the fact that Pixiu doesn't hold poses well, since it is an easily fixed problem. So one last thing I thought I'd mention before I ended part 1 of the Pixiu review is that Resinsoul was so lovely and included this kind of feature or whatever. As you can see, the Pixiu has these pretty huge hands that would make getting them dressed very difficult, and then they got their big old dragon claw talon things. So to fix this issue so that dressing them is easier, is that they chose this S-hook, which has this really small bit here that goes on the elastic, and then this part is really big. So you can actually let go of the S-hook and it'll just get stuck there in the hole. And then you can just pull it back out with some mega finger strength. And you can slide their hand back on like that. And so you can just remove their hands when you're putting new clothes on them. And the same can be said for their feet. Just take the S-hook, you let it go down. It can rest in the little joint, this ankle joint piece or whatever. You can get them dressed, you pull that S-hook back up, and you hook their foot back on. So I thought that was kind of a good idea. I don't know if it was intentional or what, but it has made dressing and changing my dolls' clothes much easier than if if they didn't have that kind of thing going on with them. So yay! And that is all for part 1 of the review. If you have any questions about the doll, leave a comment below in the comment section or ask me on Tumblr. Thanks for watching. See you guys in part 2.